Nagito Komaeda, most popular character excluding Monokuma and the most unique. Technically, you can consider any character unique depending on how you look at it. Like if Fumi could be if... Anyway, regardless of that fact, I'm still sticking with my opinion. Nagito Komaeda is defining for the world of Danganronpa and iconic for the franchise. You either love him or hate him, though there are elephants in the room like Kokichi's clear intentional similarities to him. So, how am I going to write these things off? Let's see, my first big point is genuine insanity. Also, if you enjoy, like and subscribe, and spoilers for the games and anime ahead. Also, Genshin Impact for some reason. Nagito is crazy for Cocoa Puffs, like borderline mental, like unfathomably off the rails. This guy killed himself in order to get everyone else killed, and rationalized doing it to himself due to a talent that you could never entirely convince yourself works in the real world. Nagito is a different breed, obsessed over hope. Though, why exactly am I bringing this up in a video on his unique writing? Well, there aren't other characters like this. Don't get me wrong, insanity is a recurring theme through the use of perspective, justifying to an extent the murders happening throughout each game. You could consider Leon insane to an extent for murdering Sayaka when only slightly provoked, or Byakuya's temper in Michihiro's body, but when compared to Nagito it doesn't come close. Nagito is genuinely crazy, and while extremely intelligent, it's real enough to the point where that intelligence doesn't hinder his lack of social awareness or sense of self. He may be gifted with smarts, but he's burdened with his dementia, ideologies, and experiences. That's that. It's real. There's no second side to him when he's completely normal, and the closest we'll ever get to that is Super Danganronpa 2's Chapter 4 and 5's counterpart of him. The anime tones it down, which, while I don't like that, it's okay. I'll talk more on that specifically later. In the murder cases, he's a vital asset, but in any normal interaction between the students, his lack thereof is extremely inconvenient for his sake. The only reason he shines as particularly smart is because of the twisted nature of their environment. My point that I'm trying to make is that he is the only properly good rendition of insanity turned into good writing for the most part. Mikan and Junko are crazy, but that craziness has very little screen time and a lack of depth. Nagito is the only explored crazy person, and that craziness has so much building, layers, and thought put into it. It's bound to stick out when thinking about who is the most realistic crazy boy. Well, Nagito isn't realistic, but you know? Now, the anime shows the opposite side of things, which displays Nagito in a completely different environment, that being a not so twisted atmosphere. School. Well, for some that is twisted, but you know? If you've watched the Despair arc, you'll notice Nagito becomes increasingly more and more integral to the story as it becomes increasingly more and more crazy, because it fits better in that lens and that environment. He's more entertaining doing bizarre things like pulling out a gun or murdering a bunch of people with a small rock than he is awkwardly having episodes of class. They're both fun, but there's a clear winner. Nagito blends into the cast a lot more early anime because of this, and it shows, though he always manages to define himself with insanity when the time calls, because it's a primary part of what makes Nagito the beautifully unique character that he is. There's a point of unaware versus aware shown in the differences between these two versions of Nagito come together to paint a bigger picture. Nagito was unaware in normal school interactions during the early Despair arc and Future arc, though was completely aware during the games and later Despair arc. He doesn't understand social desires in other humans, but understands things like the love for the underdog and motives behind murders, as if he only understands things related to hope. He doesn't derive much hope from sitting around talking, but rather from making changes to the world around him and doing stuff. He's quick to act and to think when he needs to. It can be the opposite, because Nagito is inconsistent. He's crazy to the point where he doesn't even need to be one person, and this too is part of what makes him unique. Let's talk about it. I've made a whole hour-long video on this topic, so if you're curious, click on the card up in the top right corner. Anyway, there are a few inconsistent characters throughout the franchise, not just Nagito. Kokichi has an evil versus good complex that is a little random, alongside characters like Peko going from actually tolerable to borderline bonkers. It made literally no sense, and it is never truly explained. I don't know if you've noticed from my examples or not, but Nagito is the only logical inconsistency here. While Kokichi, Peko, and Nagito all go unexplained, Nagito's makes sense when you think about it. The other two do too, but it depends on perspective, and it's the least stretched out one. Makes the most sense. Though I will say, Nagito's inconsistency is also the least extreme. It's why I made a video on that. It's not something too obvious unless you look for it. As vague as Byakuya's character's development, you most likely consider it in retrospect. Nagito's flexibility as a character is kept in certain confines that are sometimes broken with other characters. The writers clearly put a conscious effort into making sure Nagito's nonsensical nature made sense. So you could technically write Nagito's uniqueness off as the passion or effort put into making him who he is. But I'm not done yet. Not at all. To be able to go on to the next part of my argument, we need to look at this inconsistency from a different angle. Instead of how or why he's different, let's look at why it's not extreme. The things that are the same between every version of Nagito. This character is defined by, of course, his insanity, but his insanity is characterized and funneled through primarily two things: his ideologies on luck and hope. I've mentioned hope once already, but these two things create his character. It's the causation, and Nagito is the effect. When analysing how he thinks, I and many others had to use his statements and views on hope and luck to determine certain things on his character traits. Both hope and luck remain as consistent points of what he likes to always talk about in both the anime and all games, as they directly connect together and then connect back to him. His luck helps him rationalize hope, as the only reason he can believe in such extremes with no doubt is due to his life as the physical definition of an extremity. His luck is extreme, therefore causing his upbringing and environment to be extreme, creating an extreme character with an extremely flexible personality. His luck is always changing, and so is how he acts. I just said extreme a lot. That was extremely awesome. This constant change is why he needs to be grounded no matter what these two beliefs. Hope and luck. What's Nagito without his primary goal and motivation being hope? And what's Nagito without his only way of getting there being through luck? He needs to have these two traits to remain as himself throughout to stay iconic. Kokichi loses himself once his good side is shown off, and Peko is hardly recognizable when she's donning the sparkling justice mask, both physically and through personality. So, to summarize everything we have so far, Nagito is unique because of his flexible but grounded and justified inconsistency, his explained, in-depth, and logical insanity, and my next point will be what I've slowly been bringing up more and more over time recently: his luck and hope. Alongside his views on that luck and hope, if this set of ideologies is so important to what defines Nagito, it's definitely important to bring up when discussing why he's different from everyone else. He's definitely different from the other girls. So, luck and hope. Both concepts that Nagito would probably marry if given the chance, if he didn't hate himself so much. While his ideologies are one thing, he sacrifices his own image in his mind and to everybody else for the sake of these aforementioned ideologies, prioritizing them. His luck is a segue into hope, which in itself is possibly his own way of coping with his actual acclaimed failure, which you can see somewhat confirmed when he asks for a bronze statue to be erected of him if his hope shines through, showing that he desires to change the world through hope. How will we do that? With his luck, of course. His luck is very extreme, though he believes in the cycle, helping him predict the future behaviours of his fortune and therefore calming down and reducing his inner fears. It sounds like a coping mechanism to me, as he doesn't want to be thrown out of whack just by his luck, though it could just be for the sake of hope. Why have I begun directly analysing his character though? Well, reflecting the analysis undergone thus far, this depth could possibly apply to other characters in the franchise, though it's unlikely. Alongside this, most characters in Danganronpa with any form of depth are just extremes of regular things, while Nagito is a mix of multiple. Effective superpowers paired with unwavering optimism and self-loathing. No sense of self and more. You can simplify his character, but it'll never do him justice. Nagito is original and deep. It's bizarre how it works, but it's true. Anyway, my analysis is of course not finished yet. A big point I can personally relate to that might not be agreed upon is understanding. You can make a deep character that's extremely original. Their quality is determined by the logic behind that worldview. How can you decide whether it's logical? Well, just think about it. Could you see the world in a cycle of luck? Can despair truly bring hope in the long run? Is it worth sacrificing yourself for the greater good? Nagito is the embodiment of human fears. We're afraid we may need to sacrifice ourselves one day for the greater good. We're scared of pain, but we know it's necessary to keep going. We all know our good moments will cycle into bad ones, and we just need to go along for the ride. We need to go for the greater good, that hope. Is there a pure good in the world? I think so. I just think it's extremely rare. Just like how Nagito's personality and luck is extreme, his metaphors are as well. This guy was made to be controversial, right? Well, him being a metaphor for fear would easily contribute to that. Some people are afraid of accepting these fears, and some people advocate for it. If you think I'm going off track by rambling about this, I'm not. This is all for one main point that I just haven't said yet, that being his competition. Based on everything I've said, it's clear Nagito is deep. I've told you that so many times, and I'll continue telling that because it's true. But on top of that, his depth is unmatched in similar circumstances. That's why he's so unique, why he's the most unique. How can I give one last piece of proof in relation to this? Well, besides the fact he acts as if he's a main character, the fact he has a twist that isn't right before his death, and the fact he's definitely wearing a wig, let's look at the writer's attempts at creating a character in the same role. The ultimate supreme leader, Kokichi Oma. This guy is a villain like Nagito, but unlike Nagito, lacks depth, originality, and a defining ideology. He has alternatives, but it'll be up to you to decide whether they're better or not, if that even matters. We're talking about uniqueness, not quality. Spoilers for Genshin Impact ahead. Take a look at something like Genshin Impact for a moment. and the character Childe, or Tartaglia, paired up with Lyney. Lyney is flirtatious, extroverted, part of an evil organization named the Fatui, and so is Childe. Lyney has a central role in this part of the story and has a moment of betrayal, and so does Childe. It's clear that this is intentional, as Childe returns once Lyney shows up as well. It adds up, and I feel like the creators of Danganronpa attempted to do something similar with Kokichi and Nagito. Nagito is the original villain, with charming amounts of insanity, depths, ideologies, relational themes of foiling, and Kokichi can only hope to have that same effect. I've said this, but part of Nagito's charm is his ignorance and unaware approach to the sins he's committed, while he continues to do so and has moments of extremely scary amounts of awareness. Kokichi, on the other hand, lacks the unaware part, and while characterization is characterization, there's nothing to make up for this. Because of what I'm saying, you'd expect Kokichi to be somewhat logical rather than crazy, but despite his logical personality, he has an insane attitude. This doesn't match up in the slightest, and Nagito simply works better because of this. However, I have more. Kokichi has the potential of being integral to the killing game due to one simple fact. His ideologies are surrounding the topic of lies, honesty, trust, and even murder to an extent. He's like a physical manifestation of the killing game itself. And while I like his quotes and views on this subject matter, his character gets in the way. He's a big hypocrite and makes absolutely no sense after Chapter 5. And because his character and ideologies don't match up, it causes a suffocating feeling of surface level 2D writing that can never go away. It's like two different people wrote the same character. Nagito simply syncs up more with himself, far better than Kokichi does. In fact, even if he didn't, it can be excused due to how he was written with the off-the-rails attitude. Also, he isn't self-loathing or self-sacrificial in the same way Nagito is, and sacrifice is also a big part of killing games, as sacrifice and murder are both forms of death. Kokichi just misses too many good spots of being as awesome as Nagito, you know? They really trapped themselves in Kokichi Armor and Danganronpa V3. Anyway, let's summarize everything we've hopefully learned today. After discussing all these things, it's safe to say that Nagito's depth through his insanity, intricate ideologies, and synchronized writing is a big factor in why he's so unique. He also feels extremely real, even for such an unreal character, as rare and illogical as it is. He himself is illogical. You can needlessly analyze this guy all day every day, but today, I simply wanted to bring to light why he was so unique. Peace out, guys.